on a Tuesday, Ben?
I have no idea, man. I should stop doing that for sure.
It just doesn't even make any sense at all.
No, it doesn't. But we are live, Keith. How are you, my man?
Today's the best day of my life, Ben. How you living?
Today is the best day of my life because we have an awesome guest that I'll throw it over to you to introduce, and then we'll hear from him and hear about everything he's working on.
Yes, we have Si Katara with us in the building, a fund manager and a Wall Street veteran to some degree. I would throw it to you, Si, to give us a little bit more of your background. If you had a couple of minutes, what would you say about what you do?
Yeah, I appreciate it, Keith. Yeah, actually, I didn't come from a finance background. I'm a tech nerd. So I used to be a computer programmer back in Silicon Valley, and then found my way into finance recently. So taking technology to really try and make an impact in the finance world. And the whole, purpose for us is how do you make really powerful financial tools available to everyday investors and advisors? And it's interesting, the topic we're talking about today is like how Wall Street can kind of feel a little bit rigged sometimes. But part of the way that the playing field is set up is that access is a real challenge. Some of the stuff that really can move the needle, the rest of us don't have access to. But now jumping over to the institutional side, so we run publicly traded ETFs now. We actually try and take and package this stuff that's otherwise inaccessible, but put it in a way through ETFs that everybody can actually now have access to. So that's a big part of our why, but it's been an unbelievable experience kind of transitioning from tech into finance because of how you can really make a huge impact on people's lives. So that's what gets us out of bed every day, and super excited to be here with you guys today.
Super cool. I was listening to one of your interviews, and it seemed that 2022 was around when you really made this transition into this world. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's exactly right. I was sort of going through this process where I'd built and run a technology company for 17 years, and I blinked my eyes and half my career was behind me. I got gray hairs. I'm on the road like 3 weeks a month. I kind of like delayed my life until like my mid 40s. I didn't get married, and then my wife was pregnant, and we're gonna have our first kid. And it really forces you to stop and think and like, how do I want to spend the rest of my days? Can I make an impact elsewhere? And what do I do in order to transition? So I made the tough decision to leave the company that I founded. But this was October of 22, and I'm sure many of you remember the markets were way down. And I'm like, I was just an S&P 500 buy and hold guy just because I was busy running the business. But I didn't want to have to sell shares to make ends meet. And I'd learned about options and covered calls. My dad was an engineer turned advisor too. Apparently, that's a good match for mindset to career. But this brand new capability just came out that same quarter, and that was short dated options, basically options that just expire every day. And my engineering brain said, that actually makes a lot of sense to manage risk because you just have a lot more precision. And if your goal, like mine was like, I want long term exposure. I'm going to be around, knock on wood, for a while. I have a family to support. I'm here for the long term with my investments, but how do I sort of meet the short term requirements for income? And there was no income that came out of the S&P 500, really very small. So I tried this, and I tried the short date strategy. And fast forward 2 months, it blew my mind. Just the option premiums that I was getting on top of keeping my S&P 500 shares covered almost all of our mortgage. And at a time where we're about to have our first baby, you feel that financial pressure, like all that pressure was just relieved. The hard part was if you're doing the stuff every day, it takes time. It took like 4 hours a day to get it done. So with the software background, I wrote some code that took 4 hours of work down to under 5 minutes. And that was the unlock. I was like, wait a minute. If I can, I mean, I'm sitting on all this potential income. It's just locked in my SPY shares. Now I have a capability to unlock it. How can I share that with other families like ours? So the original game plan, the go-to market was, I was a software guy, right? So like if I got a hammer, everything's a nail. We learned real quick that compliance and doing retail, there's all this overhead. Trying to get partnerships with brokerages, like it was just going to be a really tough road to hoe to try and actually create a software solution around it. So we got super lucky. Friend of a friend of a friend connected with a group that actually launched ETFs out of New York. And they're like, forget about the software solution. They're like, just take this thing, wrap it in an ETF, launch it on the NASDAQ, and every month you can deliver that income right into people's brokerage accounts. And I was like, really? I can do that. They're like, yeah, come with us. We'll show you how it's done. So they basically helped me set up the entire ETF infrastructure, which is like a lot of partnerships and relationships. There's all these humans and institutions that are involved to get it done. But we got it kind of up and running. And summer of 2024, it was actually kind of like a perfect, like stars aligned. It was my dad's birthday, August 15th. We launched our very first ETF, which was called T-SPY. And all it does is it owns dollar for dollar shares of SPY. And then every day it's just harvesting little bits of option premium. And we're able to distribute pretty meaningful annualized income to the tune of about 14% annualized. And one of the biggest things was the tax efficiency inside of an ETF, betas lower, all that stuff. But basically you're getting the ice cream cone, which is the vanilla cone of the S&P 500, and then you're adding the sprinkles of the income, the tax efficiency, and the better risk adjusted returns on top. And we launched that, ran it for a year. People really took to it, started to grow pretty fast, and then we've now extended the same tech, the same trading capabilities over now to the NASDAQ 100. And then we're continuing to sort of scale the tickers that we can put out there. But it's been a wild journey. Like, coming in with fresh eyes to finance, you start to look around. You're like, why do you do it this way? Why do you do it that way?
Mm.
And people are like, I don't know. We just always have. So we can actually like move the needle for getting to better solutions that I think not having those fresh eyes, it would have been more challenging. So it's been a great ride, and super excited to sort of be part of an industry that I think can make a huge impact.
That's super cool, because we're starting to explore like what kind of opportunities are there to modernize the financial system. And I had assumed that there'd be a ton of hurdles along the way to try and do that. What was kind of the most surprising things for you? Because you mentioned like, why did they do it like that? Do any examples come to mind?
Yeah, day one. I mean, I come from a tech background. Every trade, and there's $13.5 trillion in ETFs, trillion with a T. Every trade that was done essentially like settled via email and spreadsheet. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So when we first started trading T-SPY, we would do a trade. We trade every day. But each trade, once you do it and execute it, it took about 2 hours to go through the whole cycle of settlement and custody and collateral, like all the stuff you got to do in a 40 Act fund. And I was like, this has got to change. So we ended up automating it, and it took a while. But once we got everything, now everything is like piped in. So I push a button on my proprietary software, and it kicks off the process, and it swings around to everybody. And we're able to execute full trades to tail in a matter of probably 10 to 15 seconds when it used to take 2 hours. So it's just been a game changer just to take tech, automate it. And then that gives us actually a strategic advantage, because we're one of the only funds that can trade and react as the markets change. And that's really powerful when you're trading every day, especially in markets like we're dealing with right now. When you're seeing these whipsaws every day, you got to be able to sort of manage through that.
I want to touch on some of that. So, Sai, you've clearly carved your path, and you've also done the thing of creating an offering for other people to be able to participate in the path that you've found for yourself. For a lot of people who are getting into markets either for the first time, or maybe they've been kind of watching it from the sidelines, it can feel like jumping into this game is rigged, right? Like, it's like there's something going on here that people don't understand, or there's information that's being withheld to some degree. What do you think it is that makes people feel like markets are rigged against them, and are they in some way?
I mean, part of it's been really interesting because the name of the game was always access to information. So if you had the information first, you could make a move first, and then you could actually um, capitalize on those opportunities. And there is some of that, and you see it. I mean, I'm looking at these Kalshi bets and Poly Market, and people that are betting on what's going on in the war. And it's wild when you see one account that's anonymized that actually, like the day before multiple events, is basically turning a prediction into income for themselves. So I think there's some of that that goes on, but I think that in some cases can be fringe. I think markets are one of the most powerful ways that people can lift themselves up and become financially independent. And the way I think about it is like, when we first started, and we're starting from the ground up, you don't have any resources. We don't have any money that can go work for us in parallel. So we work our asses off to sort of build a nest egg. But then you got some money soldiers, and if they're just sitting in a bank account, they're not doing anything for you. The only way to break the cycle of trading time for money is by using the money to actually generate value for you while you sleep. And that is one of the most important educational things that says markets are the best place to do that, especially depending on your philosophy. Like, I'm a long-term buy and hold guy. I think, over time, markets will go up. It's the best way to beat inflation. It's the best way to put those money soldiers to work. So having assets that can go into markets when you're long-term focused, the potential manipulation and the potential game of feeling it rigged against you, the real rig is that people don't actually get a chance to participate in the market. I think that's the big picture rigging of the game. And the other thing, and this is my skeptical side, we started TappAlpha as a for-profit company, and the whole idea is access to financial opportunity for all. But I think the thing that we need to start, and that I'm likely going to do later, is create the foundation that is about financial education for all. There is a giant, giant gap in just even early education through high school where people just don't have the tools to like learn how to manage their finances. If you can change that early, the biggest asset that people have in finance isn't necessarily the dollars, it's time. And if you can start early and give people access to understanding how to use markets, that compounding effect, that eighth wonder of the world, will have a higher probability of making an impact. So I think if we can start educating early, that's really where the system is rigged. And I don't know why it's not part of, education systems from kindergarten on up. I think it should be. But if the institutions aren't going to do it, maybe we can step in as a community and sort of help. But that's really where I feel things are rigged. It's education and access to the markets themselves versus once you get in the market, maybe there's stuff on the fringes, but just get in the game, put your chips on the table, and that's the thing that will change lives.
Yeah, and it's so difficult for people to acquire the information because before the problem was that it wasn't accessible. Now it's accessible, but it's in a sea of so much bad information that people have no clue what to look at. They get fatigued and they just quit. And so I think that's a really good thing. I think that's why Keith has blown up so much because that's really been his core thesis the whole time. So I think that's fantastic because even with the best product, if people don't understand why it's a great product, they still won't take advantage.
Exactly right. That's the biggest thing is in ETFs. It's been interesting because ETFs used to be smaller, and now there's thousands of them.
So many.
And there's misconception too. Like, not everything that's in an ETF. ETF's just a wrapper. It's just a box. It's a cardboard box. It's what's in the box that matters. And a lot of times people don't know how to dissect and get in the box to really understand what's in there. So like education is our number one thing. And our goal, like, all I want to do is raise the flag and say, hey, here's the thing. Here's why it could be beneficial, but it's not for everybody. But you've got to do your research. I just want to make all the information transparent so you can make the best decision for yourself and your family. That is bottom line. I think the most important thing is whatever financial tools people are thinking about putting to use, you've got to get to know them, because if you make the wrong assumption, it could have some big impacts downstream. It's so important.
What do you think, in your thinking about educating people about finance and how to participate and put the chips on the table? What do you think are the major things that are not being taught that should be taught?
I mean, one of the things that it's crazy to think, like, people that earn spend their dollars too soon after they earn them. And if you have the lens that says, wait a minute, rule of sevens, in 7 years with typical returns, I can double that dollar if I put it in the right place, it will make us not want to spend it, because in 7 years, the assets that I have could double. And guess what? 7 years from them, it could double again. So now you start to see the exponential piece. It's the understanding of what is a dollar today worth when invested the right way and how that changes behavior. I think those two things, if we just can put a spotlight on that, it will prevent making mistakes now, where you can start to use that really important asset of time to make a fundamental impact in how people live their lives. I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions, to understand how time and compounding can really, really make a difference.
I love that. I talk about what I call like the three levers of wealth, where it's with your money, right? You can either increase your returns, you can increase your capital contributions, or you can increase your time that you spend in the market. And the more time that you spend, that's the lever that obviously is the most boring thing, right? No one wants to think about that part. Everyone wants to get higher returns. But when you really just leave time as the as that variable that works for you, it's something that as time goes on, it becomes more and more powerful, right? So um, there's that story about Ronald Reed, the guy who worked as a janitor his whole life and ended up retiring as worth like $8 million and like donated $6 million away at his death just because he was investing in the S&P 500. The moral I like to take away from that story is that, well, he lived to be like 80 something, and it's like actually the one of the things to think about throughout your time of investing is how can you also keep yourself healthy enough, right, to be able to actually get compounding to work on your side. Health is wealth in that regard to some degree. But yeah, I mean, it's also something that's interesting because you're playing both sides of the market, right? You're playing on the daily basis with the covered call strategies, but also you're saying, I imagine, taking that income to some degree and then like putting it into longer term investments, or how do you look at playing both sides, the short term and the long term of markets?
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's important to put a box on it. So the way that our products are structured, the core, every dollar that we have, 99.5% go into the underlying security. So T-SPY, it's like 99.5%. It's basically dollar for dollar shares of SPY. And then we're writing out of the money calls. But these aren't coin flips. These are conservative. And if you do the math, so since we launched, 82% of those calls are profitable. And the 18% that are not, where it goes in the money, we manage the risk to minimize the downside. So this is not a 50-50 kind of coin flip game. This is a like, let's play the stats. We want to be the house, not the blackjack player. And ultimately, we want to be the ones that can capitalize to collect little bits, slow and steady wins the race, just to add a little bit of alpha to what the underlying is doing. And it's interesting. So we distribute 14.2% annualized, but we do it in a tax efficient way. And a lot of people don't actually necessarily need all 14%. I always say, like, if you don't need it, don't take it. People can tuck it back in and it'll go back into the capital growth side. But like we talked to a lot of advisors and a lot of direct investors. One advisor, he put a lot of his own assets into T-SPY and TDAC. And so he basically just did the drip. He didn't need the income. But then his daughter was getting married early this year. So he's like, now I could actually use the income to help pay for the wedding. So he ended up dialing up, he turned off the drip, dialed up the income piece, used the income from those investments to pay for the wedding. And then when that milestone was done, he turned the drip back on. So having a dynamic lever that's tax efficient, that's what allows you to sort of reinvest it without a leaky bucket from a tax perspective, is really powerful. But the goal is like just two things. One, growth in the long term is really important, but how do you actually meet your short term needs? And sometimes those things work in opposition of each other. But finding the right balance is really important because, like, my parents' generation was all like, you grind your tail off forever for 40 years to build a nest egg, and you squeak along and you're super conservative. And then in retirement, you finally get to like open the floodgates a little bit, enjoy yourself. But our generation is more of the mindset like life happens along the way. How do I find a balance to that? And that's exactly what we want to build, is a platform to help support growth plus income in one allocation in a very tax efficient way, so that we have flexibility when life happens as it happens, that you don't have to live a bookend lifestyle. My last company I built for 17 years, I was stuffing money into the growth asset, but I never got liquidity. I barely got a paycheck forever. It was all just compounding the growth. And then 17 years passed, and I'm like, I got nothing to work with on the day-to-day basis. So what do I do now? And so I ended up leaving. They're growing, and I'm hoping that they get to a liquidity event at some point, but like I don't have liquidity from that. This was the manifestation of what I learned from that, in that I paused so much of my experience to be, delayed, that I needed to find a method that would help me live my life as it happens. And that's what this mindset is about. So for me, it's about balance, and it's about don't use it if you don't need it, but take a balance for the long term and the immediate needs and find a way to sort of chart a path forward.
Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to cut you off there, Keith. So I was going to say that I love the fact that what you're sharing throughout all of this is that there's different tools that can be used depending on your situation. I think a lot of people, they're either like, I invest or I don't. And they usually say it's because of some sort of arbitrary thing. Like, I know a lot of people are like, oh, why would I invest? I want to live my life right now. And I love that you're saying, okay, cool. Why don't we create a strategy that allows you to do all of those things at the same time? Where can people, like, how do you recommend they start learning about these things? Like, do you believe they should be speaking to a financial advisor? Or like, how do they begin their academic journey?
There's so much information out there right now on the web, and also AI has been unbelievably beneficial. The other sort of magic lever for us when we started, this was October 22. Guess what came out in November, 1 month later? It was the first release of ChatGPT.
Wow.
And so everything we've built, like everything from the strategy, the plan, the investment analysis, the back testing, all that stuff was driven by AI. And now we built an entire platform. I did it in, I think, like 4.5 weeks for Rev 1 that would have taken me probably 11 or 12 months.
Amazing.
And it was just me, nights and weekends, kind of making it happen. So leverage that and start asking questions about, and do it in terms that you understand too. Like, what are the goals that you have? What are the outcomes that you want? Forget about the financial terminology. And then maybe leverage the AI and the search capabilities to make that map to what are the tools that are out there that can help support that. That's how we always love to do it. Like, we started, because I'm a nerd, super tech guy, like started talking about like the how immediately. Oh, we use 0 DTE options, and it's like calculus, right? Because it's a, shut up. Nobody understands that. They understand the outcome. What can you get with it? You can get growth plus income. You can actually have resources to use today without sacrificing tomorrow. That's where you can start. And there's so much, I mean, resources like this channel, a lot of different income investing channels, different ways to, leverage income today, but also have that balanced approach tomorrow. There's a ton out there, but just start, search. AI is a great place to begin. Go to the prompt and say, this is what I want to accomplish. Where should I go? And off and running you go.
I love that. Because it can be that simple to start, but a lot of people overthink the entry point, and then that stops them from a lot of potential learning. So that's great.
Si, one of the things that I wanted to pick your brain on a little bit is around options.
Mhm.
So a lot of people over the past, I'd say maybe 5 or so years, there was like this inflection point to where options trading, I believe, became more prominent than the trading of the underlying to some degree.
Mhm.
And a lot of young people are out here using 0 DTE options, and mostly they're buying options
Mhm.
as a way to try and make some extra money or potentially, free themselves from whatever situation they're in, or to, um, get rich, right? Is kind of one of the goals that people have trying to use these option strategies. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between buying options and selling options, and how the probabilities around all of that can either work for you or against you?
Yeah, it's such an important distinction because they're not all in one bucket. So when I first started trading, it was in my 20s, was trading options. I was on the buy side of options. And I was unfortunate in the sense that my first couple purchases were wildly successful.
Yep.
And I was like, this is awesome. This is easy. And I had like probably 10x or 15x on one investment per execution. And I was like, this is why is anyone trading equities? And then I learned why it's a very dangerous game. And there's nothing good or bad about it, but the risk profile that's required to buy options is a much higher tolerance. It was not a fit for how I was wired. I'm a low to moderate risk person. So I stopped buying options because it was just a mismatch. Um, so then fast forward 20 years, started to sell options, and that was a much better fit for my risk profile because instead of 5 to 10% success rate, now I have 80 to 90% success rate, and I'm able to, in a very measured way, manage the risk. It's like slowing down the game a little bit so that you can actually like get the outcome that you want. Options also, like, people talk about buying and selling, they're also a risk management tool. So in markets where there's lots of volatility or people are worried like, oh, there's going to be a drawdown, you can even use options as insurance for existing assets that you have. So, you own a bunch of shares, you can buy insurance on the downside that said, hey, I'm gonna prevent my losses from going any worse than this. So there's lots of ways to use it. My advice is make sure that you're using it in a way that's in line with your risk profile. And for me, buying them was not, it was too risky. It was you can lose everything. And then here's the other thing about options. Inherently, they are a depreciating asset. There is intrinsic value and time value, and time does nothing but tick down. So if you want time on your side, sell them, because things will tick down to the point where when that goes to zero and you sold it, that's you winning. That is a great way to start to use options in a way that's manageable from a risk perspective. But just risk, make sure it matches how you use them, and understand that options are a depreciating asset by nature. So make sure that you're using them in the right way.
Love that. And towards the beginning there, you were talking about having that win in the beginning. That reminded me of I was reading a book from Charles Koch a few years ago, and he said that his father told him, Fred Koch said, "I hope your first deal is a loser. Otherwise, you'll think you're a lot smarter than you actually are."
That is brilliant. I'm putting that on my wall. I need that. It's so true. And markets will make you humble really fast, because once you think you've got a pattern figured out, it will absolutely correct it. So like I'll give you one experience. Last April. This markets, by the way, for zero DTE options right now have been unbelievably challenging, because the downside risk is there, right? You own the equity, it goes down, it's the same risk. The risk that you're adding with a covered call is that if there's a really fast upside move, you can cap the upside, and that's something you got to manage. So now rewind to last April, the Liberation Day and the tariff experience. Markets went down 18% on the 2nd. And then on April 9th, when the tweet went out that said we're delaying tariffs, in 3 hours, the market went up 9.5%.
That was crazy.
Yeah, that was crazy. You know how many times that's happened since World War II? 3 times. It's what you called like absolute tariffs. I think it was tail risk. It was, I think, a 10 or 12 sigma move for any of the nerds out there. It's not supposed to happen, but it does, and that's what markets will do. So we had to adapt, and one of the things that we did was like we now had to change our perspective so that we could buy catastrophic insurance to the upside. So now we have the ability to not just sell the call, but we can buy a further out of the money call, so that if it goes up, we cap the loss to whatever the difference between those two things are. So we have to learn. To your point, we have to learn, and markets are the things that are going to make you learn. But the other thing is that I would say, you'll never be ready. You'll never you just have to first start taking a step forward. And that's the only way you'll get ready, by experiencing it and getting your ass kicked in the arena. And that's the thing that's going to give you the capabilities to then be victorious in that arena in a future iteration. But just you need the experience. That's the most important thing.
I read a book from Benoit Mandelbrot a year ago, and it's called The Misbehavior of Markets. And he basically was the person who created or who coined the concept of fractal geometry.
Hmm.
And he took that and he applied that to markets. And one of the things that he found was that um, basically markets have more multi sigma events, more events that create deviation from the standard that are outside of the normal. For instance, let's say over a 5-year period, you would only expect to see a 20% drawdown. Well, first, he's saying that that happens more often than you would expect. And then the second takeaway from the book is that when they do happen, they're also larger than you would
Yes.
expect. And I thought that that was a very interesting takeaway from looking at fractal geometry and how that applies back into markets as well. As you're doing what you do, how do you separate the emotions of all of this from what's happening in the charts? Are you purely mechanical? Are you having to make decisions while things like that are happening, or what does that look like for you?
It's a balance between the two, and it's so important, because like there are days when I am just full of cortisol and I'm like, this is crazy. And then guess what happens? Your brain turns off. It turns into fight or flight. So all of a sudden, this part of your brain, the frontal cortex, is not working anymore. So you have to have mechanical rules and structures in place to get you through that. So that's where the fintech on our side really helps. I push a button, It pulls in so much data in real time, and then it just gives me risk reward. And all I'm doing in the guardrails is seeing, are things inside or outside of our strike zone. So that takes all the noise and the panic out of it, and I'm able to execute it in a really consistent way. But like, there has to be a human in the loop, and so I'm the one that actually pushes the button, but I get the tech to do all the work for me, so I can make sure that I'm making the final judgment within the rules that we've put into the strategy. That is the single best way to keep your emotions out of it. And I look at these markets too, and it's the fight or flight. It gives you this false sense of, I need to have a bias for action in order to stop the pain. And the irony is, no, what we really need to do is be able to sit in the discomfort, let the market do its thing, and then you'll get through it. But if you actually take an action now, it could potentially be the worst thing you could do for the portfolio. So the more that you can remove your immediate judgment, because our brains play tricks on us, the better off you'll be. And that's one of the things I love about, growth plus income investing as a category. Because people are getting relatively consistent income on a monthly basis, it helps people stick to the plan. You see madness out there, but you at least see some semblance of consistency, and you're still able to make your income needs. You don't necessarily worry about the day-to-day madness that we're seeing, because you get to pull back, live your life, and know that you're a long-term focused investor. Stick to that plan, because the short-term iterations are going to pass.
Love it, man. One of the things that I've also thought about is to talk a little bit about the entrepreneurial side of getting into Wall Street and whatnot, or into the financial world, period. Launching an ETF as your first business in this space is a pretty wild thing to do. How did you find the confidence to go ahead and say, I'm gonna launch an ETF? And I know you said you had some partners and things maybe that made it a little bit easier for you, but how did you find the confidence to do that?
It was one of those things, when you go through anything that's been done before, um, it's just procedural. And so, like, engineers are really good at like one thing after another. So I've got a hashtag OTAT, one thing at a time. That's all you got to do. Uh, to solve one problem and solve the next. But it was a long list of things, but ultimately, like, it wasn't as hard as I originally imagined, because these problems have been solved before. The real challenge is, like, when you're an engineer, like, you're solving things that have never been solved before. So that was one thing going into it. I was like, okay, from a cost perspective, does it make sense? And then from a process perspective, do I have people that have solved it before? You put those two things together, then you have the confidence. I know I can execute. I know when there's problems put in front of me and decisions to be made, I've got a process to tackle each one at a time. But that's it. Like, do one thing at a time. And once you like have built a business before, and the first business I started, I was 27. And I liken that to, I love terrible analogies. So here's my analogy of the day. Starting a business is like jumping off a cliff and having the confidence to knit yourself a pair of wings on the way down. And that's exactly what you got to do, because you're never going to have those wings until you jump. But you'll figure it out, and you figure it out by solving one problem at a time. And that was exactly the philosophy that we put forth to running the ETFs and building it. And it's the best thing we did. And we pushed back hard on like a couple things. The institutions wanted us to do it a certain way. We were one of the first to do short dated options, but they're like, ooh, I don't know if I can collateralize that, because a separate institution trades the options. We have the shares. How are you going to make those two houses connect? And so they're like, why don't you just build it with synthetics? Don't own real shares. Or why don't you use swaps? And I'm like, how am I going to explain it to my mom? you know, she's not going to know what that is. She wants to know, do I own the shares or not? And so it took us an extra 5 months. We're the only one out there that still does it. But that also created one of the biggest potential tax advantages by using real shares in an ETF, which has also been a game changer for investors. So, like, no one knows better than you and the problems that you're trying to solve. Just know you can solve them, especially if you break it down one at a time.
Wow, very cool. And then on the perspective of you taking this as a publicly traded ETF versus maybe just doing a private fund, how did you come to that decision?
So I was thinking about doing a seed round early, and I talked to like some family offices, and I'll never forget this conversation. I was like, "Here's what I'm doing. Here's how it's worked for me in my personal account." He's like, "This makes a ton of sense." He's like, "Why are you doing an ETF? Like, why don't you just start a hedge fund?" And I'm like, "Because the last thing the world needs is another hedge fund to help a guy like you. Like, you have enough vehicles. You know what? Who doesn't have access is the rest of us." So I wanted to build something where you didn't need $1 million or 2 million to access it. You need 25 bucks. You could buy one share and you get the same relative value. The idea of democratization and the why is so important to our mission that certain vehicles just basically qualify themselves out. Yeah, I could do a hedge fund. Yeah, I could do 2 and 20. I don't care. What I care about is scale and impact. And we're going to create a business model around a product that is very affordable, that gives real benefit to real people. That's the way I'm going to go. And guess what? When I do that, the type of people that are going to be attracted to that want to work with me on that mission, are going to be very different than the people that I would attract if I just started another hedge fund. And then you realize, like, what's the point of this whole thing? It's not the dollars and cents in your bank account and your spreadsheet. It's the people that you get to share the experience with along the way. And that is the biggest why that could ever power any organization that I ever build. And so it was a no-brainer. ETFs were the way to go. Very, very democratizing, very tax efficient. And there's just a massive tailwind in that industry now. And hedge funds, it's going the other way. So we made the right choice and we did it for the right reasons.
That's so cool. That's such an interesting way of looking at that. I spent a very short amount of time with a broker dealer, and in that time, I started to realize that although I love finance and I love being around the work, I started to meet characters and just running into energy where I was like, "Oof, like I don't know
Yeah.
that I really
Oof.
want to be a part of this for my whole life."
Yes. I've had some
Uh,
oof.
yeah. So I was just talking 2 days ago with my family about this concept of like, well, if I were to do a fund, I probably wouldn't want to be like the one who has to run it. Like I'd have someone else doing that, a private fund, because it's just like I don't know that I could be just in that space all the time of, there's just, you know, uh, people all have different priorities in life and different things that they care about, and for some it can be very simple. But the thing about finance for me is that the thing that I care about is what it can do for people. It gives people their time back. It allows them to enjoy their lives. Like that's why I care about it. And I just realized that in that space, that kind of becomes less of what it's actually about. But
That
that's super
you know,
cool.
that it's such an interesting and important point too. Money is fungible and it can impact different people in different ways. But the people that like I gravitate to are the ones that understand that money is just a tool. And the real asset that you have, it's back to the first concept that we talked about, it's time and how you spend it. It gives you mind share. Like, it's two things for me. Like, my brain is very, it's problem focused. So if I have problems that I need to get solved, my brain can't stop thinking about it until it's solved. But when we're having our baby, like, if I had that problem of this financial black cloud over us, I would not have been present to see my daughter grow up for the first year. And because of this capability, I didn't miss a thing. And I was so grateful for that. And that idea of translating finance into real life impact is the whole point of why we started Tap Alpha. And also want to find other people that see it the same way, because maybe some of the tools that we can help bring to market will resonate with them too. But other people see money in a different way. But it's just a matter of what is that tool? Um, how is it reflected and how does it impact the lives that people use it?
And when you see it like a tool, it kind of demystifies it a little bit, and it can take away a lot of the fear around it, which I think is very, very powerful. So that's awesome that you had that experience. And so we got a great question here from the audience that I'll throw up. So, how do ETFs create shares after creating a pool of people's money? How exactly does that work?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting question. So when you buy, let's say you buy 100 shares of T-SPY. So you put your money into the broker and the broker gives you shares of T-SPY back. Those shares actually come from a process called creates and redeems. So if you Google creates and redeems, it will kind of walk you through the process. But basically, there's a bank. In our case, it's Goldman Sachs. They're what you call an authorized participant. So the person that takes the money is the market maker, and they kind of are the ones that provide liquidity. That market maker will then do a create. And what they do is they take the funds that come in and they create new shares of the ETF through Goldman Sachs. So Goldman will say, "Oh, I need to create 10,000 shares of T-SPY once we get enough people buying, and let me go out and actually build the ETF shares." So they'll go out and they'll buy the core. I think it's 440 shares of SPY per create, and then they put a little cash, and that's what you call a basket. And then they output the shares of T-SPY, and then they hold the constituents of the basket. So it's a really interesting process, and that's why ETFs are a very unique vehicle. If you think about, like, if you buy a share of Apple, there's a set number of Apple shares that are out there. And so when there's a lot of demand for it, that's why share prices go up. And when there's less demand for it, that's why share prices go down. But ETFs, that's not the goal. The goal is the share price, they want it to correlate to the assets that are owned by the fund. And in order to control that supply demand, you can actually create and destroy shares so that supply demand now becomes a variable that's off the table. And that's why NAV, net asset value, is really closely correlated to the market price of any ETF, because you can actually create and destroy shares in real time.
Super interesting. Yeah, I've never heard anyone really break it down like that. And they've become such a common instrument, but not something that I think a lot of people really understand. Where did ETFs really become popular? Like when did that come into play?
The last 5 years, it's been exploding. So SPY, the ETF that we own, was the first ETF ever that was put out by State Street. And this was, I think, 20 plus years ago. And I just went to a conference. GTS is our market maker. They've been one of the early adopters. They're the ones that provide liquidity in ETFs. So, they've seen the evolution. And it was like, you can look at the growth curve, where it was like a couple billion, 20 billion, 100 billion, first trillion. Now there's been inflows of like $1 trillion a year. So the US market for ETFs, when I started, was $10 trillion. And I've been in it 2 years, and now it's $13.5 trillion in a couple
Wow.
of years. So the tailwinds are unbelievable. And you see the inverse correlation between mutual funds and ETFs. So mutual funds are draining, ETFs are filling up. And so now there's this kind of gold rush to help mutual fund managers transition to ETF share classes and stuff like that. Part of it is just because mutual funds, the fees are high.
Yeah.
It's like 1.5%. There's no transparency. ETFs are transparent and they're cheaper. And the other thing is, ETFs have tax efficiency that other fund structures don't. You put all that stuff together, it's clear why the vehicle is winning. And then now there's just more and more strategies that are going into that cardboard box.
One of the things that I also wanted to ask you about is you have this technical background, right? So you coming into this financial world also is very different than the average person just running around throwing their money around in the space. But I'm super curious as to how you're seeing all of the technology that's developing now continuing to impact the future of finance, like the AI that's happening, and anything else that you're seeing that you think will change the way that either markets move or at least how the participants are actively participating in the markets.
One direct way is blockchain, and putting things on chain and tokenization of physical assets. I think that's going to be a total game changer. So when I was first starting, I'm looking at the whiteboard over there. I had a whiteboard of ideas that I wanted to start my next business, and this was one of them. But and the whole idea, right, is tap alpha, right? You're tapping into the potential of the assets you already own. So same thing with like my house. We own the house, we have a mortgage on the house, equity's going up, but I have no way to get liquidity on it. Well, if you could actually tokenize the house and sell fractional shares of it, you don't have to get debt on it anymore. You're just sharing upside or downside with investors that want into that market, and you can just sell 5% of your home to turn that into liquidity. So real-time tokenization, I think, is a game changer. And then even for us, like executing ETFs, when I make a trade, when I first started, the settlement time was, the default for Wall Street was T+3, trade date plus 3 days. As a technical person, I'm like, why isn't this stuff real time? Well, if you can actually tokenize the execution of trades, then you can start to actually get real time settlement, which creates just more liquidity and more flow. and ultimately, like it stops delay, and then it also stops manipulation potential. And that I think is really helpful to further even out the playing field and democratize access to the stuff. So the more technology can help, tokenization is going to be a really powerful way. I think the more it can lift all of us up if it's applied the right way.
We got to dig deeper on that. So, what are your thoughts on? So, you've talked about tokenization. We know that's a real thing, is a proper technology that can change markets. But what about the crypto thing? What are your thoughts on cryptocurrency and yeah, and what role that might play in the future?
It's so interesting. So the thing about crypto in my brain that triggered it was less about the validity of crypto and more about how it casts a light on our existing monetary system as being kind of imaginary, right? Because we print dollars, there's no more gold standard. At least with crypto and Bitcoin, you have something that takes work to actually be a representation of value. So crypto, I think in the long term, it has legs, and the biggest risk, and again, there's core technology and capability, and then there's the environments that they're launched in. When it started, the biggest risk was regulatory. But now with this administration, it's opened the gate to allow the roots to start to hold. So I think it's here to stay. And then when you hear about financial institutions like Vanguard opening their doors to now cryptocurrencies and digital currencies, um, it really it basically makes a statement like, okay, once it starts to get in, you can't rip it out. So I think it's here to stay. I think it's being used. It's a little wild west right now for how it's a store of value and how people are gonna be the crypto millionaires and sort of be on the right side of it. So you've got to be really careful on how you invest in it. But like, I think the merits of the idea are really powerful. I just haven't jumped in yet because I don't understand the dynamics around it yet in the environment. So that's me and my low to moderate risk profile. But others are jumping in and like wholeheartedly in. I think it absolutely has merit and makes sense, especially when you put it juxtaposed next to even our fiat currency system and how it works. You're like, oh, you're just printing paper and you're making stuff up. And oh, wait, we have 40 trillion in debt. How much is our paper going to be worth if we don't fix that problem? So it raises bigger picture questions, but I do think there's a lot of merit to what comes next.
Yeah, the chat got fired up when Keith asked you that question because we definitely have a predominantly crypto focused audience. And what I loved about your response was how a lot of people that come that are more closer to a traditional finance world, they're not as open at all. Like they're very much focused on why this is bad, why this can't work, and only obsessing over the fears. So the fact that you talked about tokenization from a real world application, then you're also open to this, like you're my guy. That's
I mean,
awesome.
it's a new world. You know, we're gonna think about where we're gonna be 10 years, 15 years from now, looking back at this
Mhm,
conversation and how different things are gonna look. You know, I don't know what the iterations will be, but
mhm.
just the concept. I mean, it has merit. It has a lot of merit and a lot of potential benefit. It's just how it's going to be applied and used. So that's what we'll see over the next 10 to 15 years.
Love it. It's just so interesting the different ways that people will. I mean, you've talked about it from the perspective that I think from the inside of looking at how money actually works would be the most rational, which is like Ben and I always are saying, okay, but so Bitcoin it has no value. It's not backed by anything. And then it's like, okay, but what about the system that we have now?
Exactly. What about that?
So it's super interesting to hear you talk about it in that way at the very least of like, well, let's definitely at least look at what the options are. And then you can start to make judgments from there. But yeah, it also reminds me of uh Anthony Pompliano. The other day, he was just like he had a really harsh statement for people who aren't paying attention to this stuff, and he was just like, "If you don't get it by now," he said, "God bless you." And I just thought that that was hilarious. But yeah, I mean, it really just the thing that I think has been the most fascinating about Bitcoin and watching it grow has been it 100% has just led to people opening up that door of like, what is our money system today? Why is it the way that it is? And the answers to that aren't really all that great, right? It kind of just is like, well, there was a time where one country kind of figured out that another country was lying or not like holding steady to their promises, and then they changed the system, right, as they were figuring that out, right? And here we are, and these changes that have taken place only took place, 50 years ago, And so, well, might we be due for another change, in the time that has elapsed? And if so, what could that possibly look like? And we just see the technology being built out. We see Larry Fink saying everything's going to be tokenized. We see Paul Atkins, the chair of the SEC, saying that crypto, is the future, and he's pushing it forward and working with the CFTC to make all of this happen. And so it kind of gets to the point to where it's like, yeah, like if you're not paying attention, at least if you're not reading the legislation and the executive orders and the things that are happening as they're coming out, may God bless you.
It also seems like they kind of have to, right? Like at this point, whether it was a controlled demolition or it happened organically and it was a flawed system on display, either way, it seems like they need an off ramp onto something different to at least alleviate some of the pressure. And so I think either way, if you're not paying attention, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of ignorance if you're not looking at it.
And thinking about who had the most to lose from getting off of fiat currencies, it's really central governments at the end of the day. And the fact that the central government is now adopting it because of the mindset of the current administration, it's the window, it's the gate that opens that you can't close Pandora's box. So it's the
Mhm.
thing that the digital currencies needed to advance the conversation, and now we're starting to see it pick up speed.
Yeah, and it's like as you were saying too, Ben, we're kind of living through this weird moment where it feels like even the average person's trust in their money system is falling. And since there is an alternative, since there is another option, you eventually have to respond, right? And that's what I think Bitcoin represents. We have all our conspiracies and stuff that we like to talk about, but if there is an actual alternative, then you have to do something. And what that will look like, I guess we will just have to see.
Yeah, it's reached that point where things totally unrelated to money have made money the main character, right? And so then that leads people to ask questions that are even okay in the current system. Like my grandparents have started asking me crypto questions, which
Wow.
is I was
That's
like,
something.
that's and they're actually listening. Like they used to when I said that I owned this stuff before, they're like, okay, you're just a dumb kid, whatever. But now they're like, tell me more. And I'm like,
Mhm.
wow, that's a massive change from where we were only 2 or 3 years ago.
There's two factors to it too. One is like, okay, what's the end store value? But the other is the mindset that's driving people off the dollar, for
Mhm.
example. So you saw gold hit $5,200 an ounce like a month ago. And it's that mentality. Plus, now there's not just, commodities and metals to go into. Now you actually have cryptocurrencies that you can do other stuff with. And so it's the two-pronged thing that says there's driving demand, but where's it
Yeah.
going to land?
Totally. And also, I think people are having to even look into their gold. And a lot of people own gold on paper, right? And so
Mhm.
then if you actually look into the reason why you were owning this in the first place, it's not really achieving that underlying mechanism. And so then
Mhm.
for those people who had that argument were like, oh, I like gold because crypto is fake. It's like, I actually at least hold my fake thing. Your fake thing is in someone else's hands.
Yeah, that's a good point there. And I also like what you were saying, Ben, around how people are asking questions, and the reason is because things are breaking, right? And so once that happens, your life is not working the way that it used to. Things aren't necessarily making as much sense as it kind of did before. At least you didn't have to ask any questions because, things just were cool.
Mhm.
Now you've asked the question. Now there is an alternative. Now you're like, wait a minute, I've got something that I need to protect, something that I'm looking to potentially grow. And it's just so fascinating to see there's like a desperation from the young people of like, nothing that I'm coming into this world is making any sense. And then
Mhm.
you've said, Ben, that there's maybe some curiosity from the people who are at least have been through life and are thinking to themselves, well, what might allow me to enjoy what I have left, or at least to pass on something that will
Mhm.
be meaningful as well, because you don't want to leave
Totally.
nothing to people if you can.
Well, as the K gets larger or wider, farther apart, right? There's more and more people every day that are starting to feel pain, or at least, at the very least, they're seeing people they know and care about ex- feel extreme pain,
True. Yeah.
right? So then almost no one is immune to this, and human beings are infinitely adaptable, but only when the 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 cost of staying the same outweighs making the change. And so many people are being either pushed there forcefully or organically this is happening. I'm not sure, but either way, look around. It's happening.
Yep. Yep. Very cool. Sai, super, super grateful for you taking the time to be with us today. And I
This
know
is
you
awesome,
said you've
man.
got an out, so we want to be super respectful of that. Um, yeah, this was awesome. Really, seriously, thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. It's also very cool that you actually care about these things and are looking for ways to educate people. That's something that's a huge core thesis for us, is we just want to try to democratize the access to the information at the very minimum.
I
Totally.
love
Yeah.
it. I
And
really appreciate you
TappAlpha's
guys.
linked down below, by the way, guys. Go show them some love.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Yeah, TappAlphaFunds.com. Come check it out. But I really appreciate you guys having me on. Love the conversation, especially people that are focused on how do we learn more about one of the things that can make the biggest impact in the lives that we lead. So that, I think, is really powerful. As we move forward to maybe focus on building the foundation side of it, the education part, would love to reach back out, because I think there's a lot of really cool stuff we could potentially do together.
Absolutely. No,
Absolutely,
we
man.
appreciate you so much, man. This was a pleasure, and we definitely hope to have you on again soon.
Awesome. Thanks, fellas. Talk
Cheers.
soon.
Have a great
Good one,
day.
man.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Smooth exit. Well, he's awesome.
Smooth operator. Yeah, shout out to Ari for
The connection. Yeah,
getting
he
us.
popped in to say what up.
Yeah, yep. Fantastic. Wow, yeah, that was super cool. I had no idea what he was gonna say about crypto. I had no idea.
Yeah. I was kind of shocked to hear that response as well, but I think that also just shows you that he's more with it. I guess that kind of also makes sense for his thesis for where he took the business in general,
Facts.
right? It's very much in line.
Facts. Yeah. I'm always curious because like you meet the finance people that are deep in the finance and they're like, this is BS. And then you meet the people that are technical and they can be super technical and they're like, this is BS. And it's just this weird Venn diagram, right? Of people who probably honestly like care about other people. Like
Yeah,
there's some other thing
totally.
that's
Yeah.
kind of there.
Oh, without a doubt. I also think that a lot of people who have seen something that didn't change for a long time, even though it should have, can't fathom that something dramatic could change. Right? We all have recency bias. And so there's probably been a bunch of times where these people have tried to make change, or maybe when they started their career or whatever, and they're like, no, son, you can't do that. But was the world as messed up as it is now?
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, crypto friendly. I like the way of saying that. That's very appropriate. Way to go, Carlton. That's good.
Yeah. 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 Cause it's always like, it's either a complete apathy, right?
Mhm.
Where it's just like, I don't know.
Mhm.
You know, I don't care. Or it's just like the devil.
Yeah. People have such extreme opinions, and I'm sure a lot of money has been spent to make that happen on, of course, in either direction, but it just, I don't get why anyone gets that offended about anything. You know what I mean? Like just like be curious, man. Just go see.
Just stay curious,
Stay
man.
curious. That's it. That's it, man.
But yeah, good stuff, man. I've got some news for us.
Hit me with the news, Keith.
So today is Tuesday, April 7th of the 2026, and we've had some interesting things going on.
Wild.
One of them I'm going to start off with is entrepreneurship's favorite person, business's favorite character, having an article posted about him. So Sam Altman, the founder of OpenAI, had a full kind of like hit piece put out on him from the New Yorker. Now, this hit piece was actually basically a bunch of quotes from people who have worked with him in the past. So not just a pure hit piece, but really digging deep. They gathered their sources and collected it and went deep. And so let me find you the actual piece here where so Roman Farrow kind of went through and talked about all of the different things and the quotes that people were saying. And I thought that this was a super fascinating read. So one of the main things was basically people saying that he's a liar and that he constantly is like shifting things to work in his favor. One of the quotes that we can see here is the problem with OpenAI is Sam himself. And colleagues saying things like he sets up structures that on paper constrain him in the future. But then when that future comes and it comes time to be constrained, he does away with whatever the structure was. Kind of like the whole OpenAI thing, right? Where it was a nonprofit. And then when it came time to be like, well, this needs to make money, then it was no longer a humanitarian thing. And it was actually all about how can we, make some money here and make sure it moves forward.
Yeah, that was a big reason for the fallout between him and Elon. because a lot of people don't realize that Elon was, because the news cycle moves so fast. A lot of people don't realize that he was part of OpenAI from the jump, right? And then Matthew in the chat had a great point here. Said, didn't they kick him out as a CEO before? Yes, that did happen, and then they reinstated him pretty quickly after he rallied the troops and got to stay around.
Yeah, exactly. And this is basically a lot of this that's happening. This article here is about that. It's about the people who were working with him at the time, like Dario, I think, was there from Anthropic. And so he had some words for him as well.
I know someone personally who was working there at that time.
Oh, wow.
I haven't had the chance to speak to them about this, but I would absolutely love to.
Yeah, super fascinating. He's also had like a bunch of other scandals that have come out recently. He's like a family feud
thing
that he's got to figure out.
Yeah. He's definitely a weird dude. Like that I will absolutely agree with, but people also do come out and get really nasty as someone gets success.
Yeah, and this is his sister too. So it's
Yeah.
like a very weird thing. He basically has said that this is all about them like wanting money from him or something like that.
It's
So
not to
I don't know.
Yeah, not to invalidate her things. Like it could all be true, absolutely, but this does also happen inevitably, right? Like there's because there's so much incentive for that to happen, right? I think with the people that are trying to fight AI as well.
No doubt, no doubt. You know, he's the main character right now, like in the whole world. He's the
He's the
main
face of
character.
this.
So
It seemed like he might be the sacrificial lamb in this whole AI thing.
interesting. I mean, he's definitely getting hit, man. He's getting hit from all sides. Nobody's really liking him at the moment.
We didn't really talk about this, but connected to it is they bought TBPN. I don't think we've
Yes.
talked about it on the show yet.
No.
So probably the one of the biggest live shows, definitely the biggest in tech. It's called TBPN, which I believe stands for Tech Brothers or something like that.
Well, it's Technology Business Programming Network or something like that.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Everyone thought it was Tech Brothers, but it's that. You're right.
Because they
And
started off as Tech Brothers. Yeah.
got it. So these two guys, they run a Monday to Friday live show within the tech space, and they just got acquired for what I've heard is 100 million, if not more,
Wow.
for their show, which is crazy. But yeah, a few lessons here. I think the first one is the value of your audience. A lot of people, they look at audiences and they just see the number and they don't realize that the who those numbers are is really the most important part. I've worked with clients that got very few views, but we're generating millions of dollars from like thousands of views, and that's possible. It happens all the time, especially with something like YouTube or in this case, Twitter, because that's where their core audience hung out. And also I think, but it's also, you've talked about this before, or maybe you and I did it personally, where like they had a lot of sponsors that were competitors to OpenAI. And so it's like, how are they going to handle that whole thing? I saw a funny tweet that went around where people had a list of all of their sponsors.
Yes.
And they're like, these guys probably have some extra ad spend if you want to go find them. So
you sent it to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Such a fascinating thing. Like, I was also talking to someone about how it's kind of a part of the show that they do these ad reads in the middle of it, you know?
Oh, it's like one of the main
culture.
characters. Yeah. And they can get away with that because like with you guys, if we do ads, like you'll get pissed at us. But for them, their audience is all about like, oh, whatever, do it, like get your money kind of deal. And they made it into a character. So, and also they're running a business. So like when we do ads, don't hate us too much. Like we're running a freaking business here, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, it's a super interesting story. They have a lot of bad PR. And so if you ask, like TBPN has kind of become like the curator of the conversation within tech. And so owning that asset is really important because it'll probably be mostly subconscious how this moves. But like they said, oh, we're not going to like have any sort of say in content. Like bullshit, $100 million. Like, are you kidding me?
And it literally, you don't have the same sponsors, like, or that same sponsorship model. So
Yes.
like it's already changed the show.
It's a completely different show. Right off the jump. Yes, totally.
And then it's also just like, so I saw some other rhetoric around this. It's like, if OpenAI is trying to buy this media platform to be able to kind of like help shape the perception of AI in general, or OpenAI specifically, whatever, then like, does buying it really help?
That's what I was thinking too, because this kind of creates a ceiling for the show through the affiliation. Because if I had to think of the most hated brand amongst people who aren't in that community, it's probably OpenAI. And so a lot of people would boycott that show just because of that. Do you know what I mean? And
For
obviously
sure.
that's not who they're trying to talk to, which I understand. But eventually you get all the tech bros, and then who else do you talk to? And I think one of the bigger issues they have is not just like them all smelling each other's farts. It's more so like them talking to us. That's like one of the biggest problems. Like right now, it's just they go on there and they basically just brag for 30 minutes straight, right?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make them any more relatable. We're not like more happy about these things happening whatsoever, right? They're just like living in their own box.
Yeah.
Have you seen that South Park episode from San Francisco?
No, I haven't.
That's where that reference is from. Basically, they walk around and then they fart and then they smell their own farts and just like part of just the social behavior. So that was just a joke from that. But it is true. Like they're all very much in a silo, and I think that's one of the biggest problems. So I don't know how that helps that.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. I mean, the show is literally designed to talk to tech people who are already there. They're already listening to the conversations. They're already listening to Sam and him explaining himself. So it's a very interesting play. I mean, another thing I imagine that they'll eventually do is expand and broaden out.
The whole ecosystem.
Yeah, like maybe that's what the acquisition is about. Actually, is like bringing different characters on, different people to chat and things like that.
Very true, Keith. Yeah, they're probably, because we talked about doing this for our stuff. It's probably going to do the exact same thing, and now they have the firepower to really do it right.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, you're probably dead on right. And there's this book that I bought that I'm in the process of getting through called The Empire of AI by Karen Howe, I think her name is how it's pronounced. She was just on Diary of a CEO, and she talks a lot about Sam Altman, dug into his stuff. So when I finish that, we'll go through it. And then I also would love to have her on too.
Super cool. Most definitely. So I will move us forward into the next piece of the news here. Really just an update on what's happening with this conflict in the Middle East, because it is getting crazy. So as of the last 48 hours, basically Donald Trump said, look, Tuesday, which is today, at 8 p.m. Eastern is when it's power plant day, he called it. Dudes, all right, power plant day. Basically, they're going to, wipe out Iran's power plants, bridges and everything. So yesterday, we saw Iran basically go to the TV, their state-sponsored TV, and this is what I'm seeing, it's alleged, right? And started telling kids to go to the power plants, right, on the time that he's saying. So that, obviously if they bomb these kids, right, that's terrible. You can't do that. And this morning, basically, things continued to pretty much just escalate. The talks are not really being had, and Trump posted this on Truth Social. He said, "A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now that we have complete and total regime change, where different, smarter, and less radicalized minds prevail, maybe something revolutionarily wonderful will happen. Who knows? We will find out tonight. One of the most important moments in the long and complex history of the world. 47 years of extortion, corruption, and death will finally end. God bless the people of Iran, the great people of Iran." So that was the first thing that happened. And then Iran actually responded basically by saying that they are not communicating anymore. They said they've cut off all diplomatic and indirect communication with the U.S. after that statement, from what I'm seeing. And well, here we are, just hours away. There was also a press conference that the Department of War was going to have this morning in the United States, but they canceled it and didn't give any reason as to why. So crazy situation there, obviously hoping that none of this happens and that we can delay this from ever happening ever. But crazy language being thrown around, talking about the end of a civilization. What does that really mean? And what is about to happen here?
It's just crazy all the way around. It's hard to even attach words to anything this messed up. Like across the board, it's just like, how is that the leader of the most powerful nation in the world? It's kind of crazy to believe that we're living in this timeline.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's there. If that's true from what you're reporting, where the kids are all going to go to these sites, like that's definitely attempting to call his bluff, right? And then at that point, like in the post that you shared this morning, where if he bluffs, which I certainly hope he's bluffing, that's another threat that didn't come to fruition, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's a really weird thing to use the ultimatum. It doesn't help you. Like now you have to do the thing that you said that you were going to do, or none of your words mean anything anymore.
And I'm seeing people even like Alex Jones, who he was a supporter of his for longer than almost anyone that I saw, right? And obviously he's the InfoWars guy, a lot of controversy around his name, of course, but I bring him up because he was one of his last supporters, and he's now fully switched to like, how do we get him out of office as soon as possible?
Right.
And yeah, with stuff this crazy, and maybe I'm giving all these people too much credit, but it's hard to believe that like this isn't some part of some plan. Like, how could this be? How could you be this crazy?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, maybe it's like maybe it is to get him out of there so that JD Vance gets in there. Like, is that how it would work? I'm Canadian, so if he were to get kicked out, who's in?
Yeah, it would, JD Vance would take the presidency, correct?
Because I don't think he would have a chance of winning on his own. So if you don't get Trump out of there, I don't see he ever gets in there. And if the whole tech agenda is to do this, I don't know.
That's an interesting thought, because JD Vance would definitely not get elected. And then so if you get him in there and he is just there, and then like people are like, all right, we just don't want to change anything, then maybe that could work when his term would be up.
Because what if he comes in and cleans up the mess, right?
Right.
And then he now has a completely different view on him.
That could happen. That could happen. And then you extend the MAGA for another 8 years, which it wouldn't otherwise under Trump, because he's supposed to leave.
Yeah. Or maybe they'd call it something slightly different. They'd rebrand it or something.
They probably need to rebrand it.
Yeah, it's probably due. But yeah, it's so crazy. And I really hope that nothing comes from this, obviously, because just even thinking about that is so dark.
For sure, man. In my eyes, there's just no way, right? I mean, the messed up piece was, I said in one of my videos back in January, and it just changed the way that I was looking at everything. We were talking about some of this on the pod, because I was talking about going to Taiwan. And I was like, once Trump did that thing with Maduro, I was like, that like, this dude's not playing around. Like, he's doing the things that he's saying he's going to do. And that to me just set a different precedent for like what this next couple of years is going to look like, where Trump is potentially willing to do a lot of crazy things. And so anyways, yeah, so we were talking about Taiwan. One of our awesome listeners, he was like, dude, like, just, don't let that stuff affect you. Like, that. I'm like, dude, I don't know, man. Like, I think like stuff is actually happening. I saw another person tweet today. There's like this meme going around that's like, nothing ever happens. And I absolutely hate that. I hate that so much.
Why?
Because that nothing ever happens mentality. So I responded and I sent a screenshot of what Google is estimating have been the deaths from the war so far. It's like, bro, like nothing happened to you, bro. Nothing's ever happened to you. And that is the exact mentality that's going to lead to the types of issues that can happen. Because now Trump is doing all this. Well, now Iran can do whatever they want. If they want to hack our stuff and do craziness, blah, 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 like everyone is on the line. You know what I mean? So anyways, yeah, I just wanted to point that out, because like, yes, I get the rhetoric around that, but it's also so myopic and privileged to be like, nothing ever happens type of a thing.
There's a general empathy epidemic across the board, but I do think the epicenter of it is America.
That's a fact, bro.
Like I've always been around America a lot, even as a Canadian. And so like you guys are super nice. I guess not to everyone and each other, but you guys are very hospitable, and like, especially there's a lot of racism too, but I mean, for the most part, like I would say they're pretty hospitable there, but like they're so elitist in terms of like, yeah, we love you if you're American, but that's like pretty much it.
For sure. And then I saw, so on my video today that I posted, there was some interesting comments. One guy was like, actually, we're in the countryside, so we don't even care. We're good. We're going to be fine. And then somebody like came at him and was like, see, but this is the thing, is like, you're now making the enemy the person that lives, a few miles away. Like, just because you're not in the city doesn't mean that these people don't matter too. You know what I mean? And it's just like, it's an interesting dynamic in the United States where it's like, it's a very individualistic culture, which comes with entrepreneurship and growth and all these things. But then it also comes with like, well, if you're in my way, like I will step on you,
There's a whole lot of that. And that's kind of, I think, a lot of the problem. But if that changes, though, I think a lot of things could change positively too, right? Like, I think a lot of this is also because people have just, I think a lot of this comes from ignorance, right? Like, you guys have been grown up on a media machine to manufacture this, right? Like, if there wasn't this elitist view on what you were, like, you couldn't have been what you were for that long, right? Like, to have the ignorance of like, okay, we're the best, and you're constantly saying that out loud and not really like looking beyond where your box, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I get why people are like that, and I do kind of feel like people are gaining empathy a little bit. I'm hopeful of. I see a little bit of it. There's obviously a lot of crazy out there, but I do see some empathy being created. So, hey,
I was listening to ICT, Michael Huddleston. For anyone who's familiar with him, he's like this prolific. He's a trader, and he has these discussions that he does on Saturdays where he really just talks about life. And it's so cool because dude's like, he's like our kind of guy in terms of like conspiracy stuff and like thinking about how the world works or whatever, like big gold bug, all that. And a few weeks ago, this is probably a couple of months ago, he was talking about, he had someone who was on stage who was from Florida. And he was like, for some reason, they were talking about like hurricanes and how when the hurricanes happen, everybody's cool. Like everybody like does stuff to help
for
each
each
other.
other.
Yeah. Like they start moving the, oh, you need help? Like, let me get my truck. Like, da-da-da. Like, you know what I'm
Yes.
saying?
It's like part of us.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah, but we're so sheltered from those things besides those situations that doesn't happen on a way less dramatic scale. I saw that happen when I graduated high school. Like everyone, like so many people hated each other, there's so much drama, and then on our grad trip, like everybody was friends. Right. There was this thing that where we all came together when we knew it was the end. And obviously it's not as dramatic as a hurricane, obviously, but like it was fascinating to see how there was 4 years of drama and hatred amongst people, and now they're hanging out and saying they're going to miss each other.
Right.
So I'm hopeful that that can be achieved, hopefully at a large-fledged, like a huge scale here, and seeing stuff like this, hopefully that makes you see that a lot of the things that we're fighting about are pretty freaking stupid.
No doubt, man. But yeah, that's the news. Not a whole bunch of good stuff. There was a cool speech from the guy that's apparently in outer space going to the moon.
Yeah, you made a clip on it.
The astronaut guy. Yeah, I can't think of his name at the moment. Victor Glover is his name. He's African American guy, former naval pilot, I believe, and he's out in outer space. And there was this really beautiful message that he had about like the world, and even that got so. Like the reactions to that were so fascinating, Ben.
How so?
Should I play the clip?
Play your clip. Yeah, play your clip.
Okay. Because I definitely want people to have some of this context. And it's just been fascinating to see how people have reacted to this. So let me go show you guys.
Yeah, and then we got to talk about what it connects to, because I made a clip about aliens and stuff, dude.
Yes, dude. All right, so here's this clip here.
While 160,000 miles away from planet Earth.
That's going to be problematic. Hold on.
Why is that?
Because that was playing, I believe, through my speaker.
On a journey to the moon.
Can you hear that?
Just made a statement without any preparation that is going viral.
So I think these observances are important, and as we are so far from Earth and looking back at, the beauty of creation, I think for me, one of the really important personal perspectives that I have up here is I can really see Earth as one thing. And, when I read the Bible and I look at all of the amazing things that were done for us who were created, it's, you have this amazing place, this spaceship. You guys are talking to us because we're in a spaceship really far from Earth, but you're on a spaceship called Earth that was created to give us a place to live in the universe, in the cosmos. I think maybe the distance we are from you makes you think what we're doing is special, but we're the same distance from you. And I'm trying to tell you, just trust me, you are special. In all of this emptiness, this is a whole bunch of nothing, this thing we call the universe. You have this oasis, this beautiful place that we get to exist together. I think as we go into Easter Sunday, thinking about, all the cultures all around the world, whether you celebrate it or not, whether you believe in God or not, this is an opportunity for us to remember where we are, who we are, and that we are the same thing, and that we got to get through this together.
What did you think of that message? Was that exactly what humanity needed to hear with all of the things going on in the world? Or do you feel a different way about that?
wild that Trump tweeted what he tweeted on Easter after seeing that, you know.
Facts, man. So that message went super viral. Everyone was like, "Oh wow, like this guy should be running for president." That's actually what a lot of people have been saying. And so there's two sides to this conversation. One of them is like, "Wow, what an amazing message for humanity." There's three things. The second thing is, why is he bringing up God? You know, scientists shouldn't be religious, this and that, or whatever. And then the third conversation is like, are these guys even in space?
Yeah, I threw that into my short on it all because I knew it would get people fired up and angry, and it worked. They took the bait right away.
Should I play that one now?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Keith's was better than mine, but here's mine about the alien stuff because there's been a lot of weird shit happening at the same time.
100%, man. So let's
see. Does anyone feel like they're about to tell us something? In just the last week, so many things have happened. It's hard for me to believe they're all a coincidence. Joe Rogan had on Bob Lazar again, and he's probably the most famous UFO whistleblower of all time. He was also Joe Rogan's most viewed podcast episode ever. He just released a movie. The astronauts have been reporting from space, allegedly. And then a very pro-alien movie comes out in Project Hail Mary. But okay, I get it. You're skeptical. All right. So let's hear from a government official on this exact subject of UFOs and aliens.
Make sure I'm understanding is a member of our government has told you and others, I guess, that there is a form of alien life and machinery which maybe brought this living creature here that interacted in some form with people?
Yeah, they have, and they've. It's pretty wild. I know, but I'm just telling you, I'm not going to lie to you. I take a lie to you. You won't put me on a polygraph, I'll take it. But this is what the guy told me. I mean, I've had a very high-ranking naval official describe. I've talked about this before. Underwater craft, something big as a football field, moving at over 200 miles an hour. And there's no fish in the ocean that would do that. We don't even have a sub that'll probably do 40 miles an hour under the. And the last thing he said before he left my office was, it was kind of weird because he went out the side door, which nobody ever uses. And he looked at me, pulled me up close, and said, "Tim, they're real."
I don't know. Maybe I'm a conspiracy theorist, but hey, us conspiracy theorists have seriously been on a run as of late. So is the next one aliens? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And don't forget to like this video and follow for more updates just like this. And when the aliens come, I'll be the first to tell you.
But the alien thing could all be a very long executed hoax for a specific tool to be used at a certain time. That's certainly a potential reality, but either way, it feels like they're going to use that tool, whether it's real or fake, pretty soon, because all of these things are happening at the exact same time, man. It's too much. Like Bob Lazar, most viewed episode ever on Joe Rogan.
Really?
Ever.
Wait, or you're saying his other ones?
His other one.
Okay.
The first time he went on was his most viewed ever.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. And like, if I was to run this PSYOP for a very long time, and I knew how technology would evolve, this is exactly how it would go. I may have my tinfoil hat on too much. It's definitely fair. But Bob going on right now, releasing a movie, and now they're using AI and all this stuff to recreate the exact things that he saw. And so that's super interesting. And then also I saw Project Hail Mary, and it was maybe the most pro-alien movie I've ever seen in my life. It is from a book, so it's not like it was just made out of thin air. Apparently it was from a book, but
and that's the Bob Lazar movie.
No, the Bob Lazar's movie is called it's only on Prime. It's called Bob Lazar something. I watched it. Hail Mary is I'll show you here. It is a movie with, what's his name again? He's Canadian. I should know this. There's the two Ryans, Ryan Reynolds and Ryan Gosling. Okay. He is in this movie. And basically, I won't give any spoilers, but he goes to space because there is an issue going on that has to be resolved from going to space. And there's an alien and a lot of stuff goes on. Very pro-alien. And then also the people are in space at the exact same time. How could any of this be a coincidence? There's too many things. Very good movie. Actually one of the best movies I've seen in a very long time. So definitely if you're into that stuff, go check it out. But as I was watching it all, I'm like, why now? You know what I'm saying?
Very, very fascinating, man. Yeah. So another thing someone said in the chat, and we talked about this a little bit. April Fool's Day was when they went up, right, in the Artemis 2.
No
That's a
way.
very
Was it on
interesting
April
date.
1st?
Yeah. Yeah.
Come
Yeah.
on.
So it's just
They're
like
trolling, man.
you could have not done that. You know
Yeah,
what I
either way,
mean?
they're trolling. But either way, when they're gonna have a lot of these, like they're gonna come out and say some shit, whether it's a distraction or not. It seems like the UFO thing is gonna become a far bigger part of the conversation. And I knew this was coming like years ago, around this time, because things get like dripped out. And because I've studied social media for so long, I always see it like early. And I knew, I'm like, we're probably like 2 or 3 years away from where this thing starts to become like mainstream. And it seems like that time is pretty well now. So I've been preparing for this. So I'm very well researched in the subject.
Were you being shown when there was like the drones that were over New Jersey or whatever a couple of years ago?
Yes. Yes. How is that not something that is still discussed if that's real?
I don't
That
know. That
shit's
just
crazy.
happened, right?
There was these drones that were the sizes of Jeeps flying over people's houses for like days on end with no
days.
explanation.
And they didn't give any explanations. They acknowledged that it was happening, but didn't give any explanations.
Totally.
What are you seeing in the chat?
Matthew said, Keith, that's fascinating. Kind of reminds me of when a homie is too faded. You finish your long ass story and he goes, that's crazy. That's fair. That's totally fair.
Oh, it's funny. So yeah, man. I mean, it might be today, man. Honestly, today kind of reminds me of January 6th, where there was just this huge lead up to the moment. I've told you guys the story on the pod before, but I told my parent that day. I said, "Hey, don't turn on the news today."
Wow.
Because I just was seeing it. I mean, it was on Twitter. It was like, you know, this is the day, whatever they called it, the something day. The storm. There was going to be a storm. And so I just was seeing that. And I was like, okay, but like something's going on here. And I was like writing down in my notebook, like, what are the different sides of this? Because also a day prior, like this guy from the Proud Boys, which was like this radical group, got arrested by the FBI. And I was like, who's on whose side? I was trying to map it out. And then that day I was like, look, just don't turn on the TV. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what's going to be said. Just turn it off. Don't look. And then they came up to me and they're like, are you okay? Like, is everything all right? Like, what's going on? And then that happened. And then I was like, and then they're like, dang, like, my bad. I shouldn't have questioned you. Like, what's going on? I didn't know. Like, you totally nailed it. But today kind of feels like one of those kinds of days where it's like you've got obviously this huge anticipation of something to happen. Obviously, we've had tons of different deadlines that have been pushed down and so on. But I feel like this one is kind of like something has to happen here.
Yeah.
It's him going through with it or some like
else
change in the direction of what's happening
of humanity.
Yes, potentially for all of humanity, and it could be
aliens.
They're going to tell us that there's aliens, and they stopped the bomb from going off or something.
So I've studied a lot of this stuff, and thank you for sharing all that. And if you clearly have that skill, so definitely continue to take advantage of that. So that's awesome. But I've studied a lot of the theories around this. A lot of people believe that because if you believe there's aliens singular, there's like a ridiculous amount of them. There has to be, right? Like if you believe that one form of intelligent life got there, then there's no way there's just one. Like there's a shitload. And so a lot of people believe that there's an intergalactic federation, essentially, where you ascend to the involvement there, but you have to not be a threat to the other people that are up there, right? So until you rise to that level of consciousness where you won't kill each other. And a lot of people also, have you ever heard of the Younger Dryas? So essentially, that's like the great myth of a great flood. And it's present in the majority of ancient scripture and mythology throughout the world. Almost every civilization has a story about a flood. And so the other theory there is that could have been manufactured by extraterrestrial life to basically wipe the slate clean. You're too aggressive. You're not going to ascend. We got to start this whole thing over and run a new experiment, which is us. Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Wow.
So and if you think about it, like what else, much like you said, the example of when there's a crisis, we come together. If you all have to ascend to a certain level of consciousness for that to happen, and it has to reach a critical mass, it would probably come from something this messed up.
For sure, man. For sure. Like I always think back to, and that's another thing, like the nothing ever happens thing again, bro. Like World War II happened, you know?
Yeah, bro.
Like that happened.
But we've been super coddled,
Yeah.
right? In our existence, we've been so coddled. And even like our grandparents, if they're old enough, they saw some shit. But like my parents saw nothing.
Fair.
My parents grew up in like peak time. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like they had nothing going on whatsoever. Like they screwed up so many times and still ended up with an awesome life. Like that's just not present here, right? So yeah, I get why people don't really sympathize with our situation because they were just so far removed from it.
I was talking to a parent last night about like the 90s had just been golden.
Yeah, I ask my mom about it all the time. I'm like, what was it like growing up in like the 80s and stuff? That sounds fire.
And it's like, and one of the things that came up was also just like the cameras not being there. So like there's so many things that you could have done,
bro,
and there had just been no consequences. You know
Imagine
what I'm
being
saying?
famous back then. That would have been so dope, man. Because you could have gone to a party, been whatever you wanted, and played that character in that person's life forever that they'd run through. Oh, I met so-and-so and they were like this, but no one would believe them. Do you know what I'm saying? They'd be like,
Yeah.
shut up. No, you didn't. But
Yeah.
there's some funny stuff in here saying, I'm super interested in the connection between aliens and World War II. There's actually a lot of connections potentially there. I've dug pretty deep into that. And also nuclear bombs in general have such a tight connection. I actually have a book back there. One of the most dry books I've ever read in my life, but it's called UFOs and Nukes, I believe it was. And it basically talks about all the connections between nuclear bombs and UFOs.
Wow.
And allegedly there's a lot of times where they were going to turn nuclear bombs on, like use them. And then a UFO flew over, turned it off.
Wow.
Yeah. So who
Imagine
knows, man?
that, dude.
I've consumed a lot of this stuff because I felt like this moment was coming and I wanted to know. And that way, if we have these people on, I can actually ask them questions where I can challenge them a bit.
Cool.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm super removed. I think it's one of those conversations that I think I don't want to know.
Really?
Like I think I'm very like I believe that there's got to be something going on. I'm not opposed to the idea that there's something going on. And so because of that, I'm like, do I really want to know? Like, is that gonna make my life better, or is it gonna make me more like insane? It's one of those things like
Totally fair.
if you know it, is it gonna make your life better? You know what I mean?
I guess that all depends on your definition of what a good life is, right? So like, I think it would dramatically reduce the chances of us winning in the way that we currently see as winning. But I think it could potentially lead to a net positive for everyone else. So I want to know.
Fair. Yeah, I'm just scared of learning things that I don't want to know. You know, it's like there's certain knowledge that I feel like I just shouldn't have.
Yeah. Why do you feel that way?
I don't know. It's just like if you knew everything, would you be as happy? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, the ignorance is bliss.
I think your definition of happiness would change, right? Because even for people, like you ascend, and typically, like, why are people who are typically poor very low vibration? It's because they're stuck, right? And so when you gain the money, you have the fortunate thing where you can also ascend in other ways as well, because you don't have to deal with the unfortunate problems that keep poor people stuck all the time. And so then your definition of what a problem completely changes. So I think that would also happen with intellectually or spiritually, whatever this is that's going on. I also think we would completely redefine what we deem as a problem.
Because we have a massive existential problem of aliens wanting to kill us, or what?
Is it a problem or opportunity?
Okay.
Right? Because like, think about how, yes, again, our lives have been pretty awesome, and I get to live in this apartment and I can go get food and water, but that's pretty rare.
Yeah.
Right. So like, if we can ascend to where everybody gets part of that, like I say this to my family all the time. It's like, yeah, we had a good life, but our good life was at the cost of a lot of people having a horrendous life. And I'd rather have the same life as everyone else than mine be good because other people's are shit. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think that this, I'm not saying aliens would just instantly give us that, but I think it would probably make us a lot more compassionate about all the stuff that we do.
I think that's super fair. Very interesting, man.
Yeah.
I don't like Tim Burchett coming out and saying that this is stuff that would keep people up at night.
But that's also seems like Hollywood speak there too, right? Because then you're letting people go to places with their mind. Like that's the best copy, right? we talk about this also in our internally stuff. I don't want to say anything explicitly. I want you to go wherever gets you the most motivated. Right? So you say everything by saying nothing. That's marketing.
Fascinating, man. Fascinating for sure. So that's a big part of culture right now, for sure, is what's going on with space and aliens. And
Sir Night Night. This is a good one here. So this is probably the most credible one that I've felt when I listened to them speak. So there's a testimony from a retired U.S. Navy commander, David Fravor, and it was quite compelling. I'll give you that, Sir Night Night. Like when I heard, because I don't really listen to the words that people say. I listen to who the person is that's saying them more so. And I'll be like, what's the energy that I feel from what this person is doing? What are they radiating? And it'd be way easier if I could be in the room with them. But you can still do that decently well via video. And he seemed fairly legitimate.
Is there like a specific claim that he's made?
Well, he's basically just said that so many people in the Navy or the Air Force, what did he just say?
He's I think a Navy pilot.
Yeah. Well, they just said it's like incredibly common that they see this stuff. And he seems pretty legitimate.
Gotcha.
And there's another pilot too that usually talks when he talks as well. I can't remember his name, but he seemed fairly legitimate as well. I also know a lot of guys in the Navy, and they're always pretty good dudes. So maybe I'm biased.
They're also, I mean, to be fair, they're the smartest. You know what I mean? Like they are also the most intellectually adept. I guess besides Space Force or something.
Man, they are, man. Like I have my one buddy Cedric. He's so freaking smart, man. And he was in the Navy. So yeah, I totally agree with that.
Well, Navy, Air Force, yeah, but same thing. If you're in the air, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Totally get you.
Top notch.
I totally get you. Yeah, he chased the UFO. So he was the one who chased the UFO. Okay, good. But people want the memes. Do you have anything else on this?
No. Just a couple reactions of stuff, same types of vibes for a little bit. So
cool.
Asipa, producer in the background, actually sent us one that I thought was super interesting. So I saw this here from him. He said, this guy right here said, shooters shoot, Thomas Welch. Don't let anyone convince you that Twitter is not a dating site. And this is a picture of him proposing to his fiance on yesterday. And so you can see the quote he quote tweeted his 2018 post.
Saying what?
Where he responded to this lady who was talking about
Simpson
playing a game back in 2018. Back in 2018. And then he commented, let's get married. And it seems that about 8 years later, that's what happened.
Man,
so that's
social
crazy.
media has basically just been the largest dating sites.
Absolutely nuts, man. So moving forward, so basically one of the things that happened over the past week was Drift Protocol, I believe is what it was called. This big DeFi protocol got hacked. And what came out was that this was actually an elaborate plan where there was like a 6-month infiltration of this team.
Wow. Where
there was a North Korean state-linked hacker group that was widely attributed to completing this theft that totaled around $285 million in assets. And so this wasn't like a quick code exploit. There was investigations from a bunch of different people that basically said this was a patient intelligence style operation with 6 months of preparation attributed to that North Korean group that sometimes is referred to as, I think it's called Lazarus Group. Yeah. And so because of that, people have been like talking about North Korean hackers and like how they infiltrate and all of this. And there was this video floating around of people trying to find a way to prevent a North Korean state actor from getting inside of their organizations or being able to contribute to their code bases.
Okay.
And so their way of doing this is by getting them in their interviews to say that Kim Jong-un is a fat, ugly pig.
Wow. That's clever.
So this guy basically just did a recording of this. I don't know how real this is, right?
Of course. It's probably a bit.
From a meme perspective, I think it's pretty culturally relevant. So I'll play a little bit of this.
I was in the process of saying, like, we get like a lot of imposter candidates, you know, particularly North Koreans, like posing as like people that they're not. So one of the tests that we do is trying to get them to say something like Kim Jong-un is a fat ugly pig. Could you say that for me?
Xinjiang?
Sorry, no, Kim Jong-un, you know, the leader of North Korea.
Yeah. I should say like that. Yeah.
Yeah, if you could, because it's one test so that I know that you're not North Korean.
Mm.
Can you say it?
I think it's like frozen there.
Did
at
it
that
freeze?
point.
Okay.
So
He really don't want to say
it. So once again, I don't know how serious that one is, but people were like arguing back and forth about it, and somebody like used that as a quote tweet to say, "Look, it really does happen. Like this is a real way of actually trying to verify if someone's North Korean or not." But it's an interesting concept because under no circumstances would they really be able to say that, right? It's kind of what their claim is.
That's super funny.
So moving forward, another piece that we saw that I saw was this guy being potentially the new Mr. Beast. Let me show you what we got going on here.
This stranger thinks we're about to rob a real bank. But he doesn't know. These people are all actors. This bank is a secret film set, and I even shut down this entire town just to convince him all of this is real. How much crime will he commit for money? Shoot, shoot, shoot! Let's find out. This.
That's some great satire. Yeah, I think that stuff like this is one of the best ways to express the criticisms to a lot of Mr. Beast's content, right? Because he does a lot of really nice things, but he also does some stuff where it's like, if you took the money out of this equation, like this would be actually kind of like Squid Game. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And by the way, I mean, I from what I can tell, I think that's real. You know what I mean? I think someone's actually trying to.
That's real?
Yeah, I think someone's trying to compete with him.
Come on.
Yeah, man. Which, you know, maybe not for one, but I mean, that would definitely take things to the next level. But I don't know shit. So next piece that I had. I'm gonna skip that one. I think we can get into some of the jokes. Let's get to the jokes, the pure jokes.
Let's do it.
So, when you call customer support and a clanker picks up,
is it a robot?
Zoom out. Can't believe I've lived far enough into the future to learn that the first slur for a robot
is a clanker.
A little bit random, but joining a Zoom early.
That's good.
This guy said, a guy who can't spell straight trading 20x leveraged oil is sick. So this guy was saying, wait, so the straight is open? And Citrini was like, it's like 10% open. And then the guy posted a short of 20x short on oil on Hyperliquid, which is also an interesting phenomenon. So this was super random. I thought it was kind of funny. People really think that safety boots are too much until this happens.
I hate when that happens.
And then someone quote tweeted that and said, wish I had these when I worked at the Flaming Sword Factory.
Facts, man.
This one was interesting. You know, Iran has been apparently blocking off the strait and allowing certain vessels to get through. And so Pepe Escobar here said, yes, we accept Petro Yuan, Alipay, and WeChat. I believe this is a manufactured image of the IRGC's Navy having some QR codes as a way to get through the Strait of Hormuz. And then 2020 versus 2026 at the gas pump.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Totally. Let me see what this one was. Okay. So The Onion is the famous, parody, old school classic parody news site. And this guy, Riz Sullivan, said on April 5th, he said, if you're the Onion writers, do you just give up at this point? Because Trump threatens war crimes, praises Allah on Easter Sunday. Thought that was interesting. And then the Easter Bunny thing people were talking about. Did you see some of that?
Mm-mm.
So there was like an Easter Bunny behind Trump yesterday, I think, when he was speaking, and it was just like a super awkward thing. Well, I guess this one I won't be able to share because it was deleted for violating Twitter's rules. Maybe
Violating Twitter's rules? What the heck could that have been?
I guess it was the account was suspended. So
Got it.
you might have done something.
I was gonna say I've seen some crazy stuff on Twitter.
Let me find the Easter Bunny thing because that was kind of wild. Basically, Trump was like giving a crazy speech, and there's just like this Easter Bunny behind him, and it was very awkward. And it was like, was he meant to be standing there, or
they're capable fighters? They're very tough people, and there are others like that. You don't mind when the enemy is weak, but that enemy is strong.
No, dude, that's real, bro. That's real, man. So, pretty mad there. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what I've got for today, man. We've got previous episode. We had some really cool. We had an awesome episode last week, man.
A polarizing episode.
Yes, super polarizing. We had so much clap back. We can definitely talk about some community here today. So Jeff Booth, he's a Bitcoin proponent. He's pro Bitcoin, and as he said with us, he was like, look, if it's not Bitcoin, then it's going to zero. And Twitter had a lot of words for Jeff Booth on that statement, and then also specifically on
he's got
XRP.
some full-time professional haters, man.
Oh yeah. There were some people who, anytime we posted a clip, they were like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, and so on and so forth. So what if Bitcoin was created by the CIA? This one got a lot of traction. But in particular, another one that was getting some feedback was every crypto asset is going to zero against Bitcoin. We had some people saying, horrible information, and just a lot of different types of comments. I don't know how much of it to really go into, but we got some traction on that post. This one right here at 100,000 views, talking about XRP in particular. This was really cool that Abs pulled up to be in the live and then asked a question, and then we had the whole conversation, and now continued the viral loop because he also reposted this as well on his page.
But the XRP people, man, they get angry.
Oh man, it's intense. Yeah, so the basic thing, I actually was talking about this, I think, on my live stream on Saturday. It's just like what people, I think, aren't understanding about what he's trying to say is that he looks at Bitcoin as a protocol, right? He broke down the 4 different ways of looking at it. You to look at it as a distraction because it's just a complete scam. You look at it as a technology, and that's where a lot of the XRP people are sitting, okay? You look at it as an asset, right? Number go up and down, or you look at it as a protocol. And so where there's just a philosophical difference, I think, is that people are saying that this is inferior technology, right? Compared to XRP or anything else that's not slow and expensive. But what Jeff is saying is that this is a protocol and that there is no alternative really to how this is going to work as far as having a money system that is truly decentralized, equal and fair. Equal and fair is probably not the words he would use, and I wouldn't either. But the work piece that even Si brought up earlier, I thought was really interesting, right? Like real money, a real money system. And like the way that someone like Jeff talks about this is Bitcoin isn't something that, like, basically the way that it's been created is it's something that naturally happens, right? As an alternative to the money system that we have. Like this is just a natural thing that humans have put into motion, right? But it's almost like a natural law of physics of money. It's like this thing needed to be created.
Yes.
In a way.
Totally. Yeah. I think a lot of the anger and frustration is just simply from like not understanding what he's trying to say in a lot of cases. And I also know there's a lot of tribalism all across crypto. But on that topic of conversation, another friend of the show, Charles Hoskinson, also had this clip where he talked about what would take Bitcoin down. So I'll play this. Let me know if y'all can hear this.
Nice.
About Bitcoin is the only reason Bitcoin is valuable is it's big, not because of what it does and not because of what it is, but it's big. A lot of people use it. A lot of people hold it. So your perception of the other person's view of the value of Bitcoin is what keeps it going. But the minute that some other asset comes along that flips it on CoinMarketCap, Bitcoin dies. Because that other asset is more likely than not going to have similar properties to Bitcoin in terms of deflationary monetary policy and all these other things. But then it does all this other stuff in addition to it. And so then people say, well, why am I using this legacy thing? The other thing is more valuable and it does more. And it also has more sustainability built into it. So there's an arrogance there because of first mover advantage. You see it in any monopoly. You saw Microsoft in the 90s when they had 94% of the market. And they lost all their monopolies because they were too slow to change. They lost the Internet Explorer monopoly. They lost the Windows monopoly. Well, Bitcoin has all these built-in advantages. They have regulatory clarity. They have 550 million users. They have institutional adoption. They have governments that are okay with it, central banks that are okay with it. The brand is great. But what they have to do is they have to get to an innovation culture. The problem is they don't have a founder to rally like Ethereum does with Vitalik. And they have a culture that is a religion, which means you can't change the Bible. You can't go in and say, well, actually, I don't like that story with Moses parting the Red Sea. Modern audiences, they're just not going to like that thing. Let's change it a little bit. Maybe he crossed a bridge. Nobody will believe the parting of the sea. You can't do that. It's doctrine. It's holy books. So anything Satoshi did was holy, so we can never change it. We can never talk about it. And so what that means is eventually you're going to lose your monopoly because eventually somebody's going to figure out the silver bullet to compete around. And what they'll do is they'll extract your value systematically. Bitcoin DeFi is probably going to be the way. Why does the gold have to live at the gold mine to be valuable? Bitcoin leaving the Bitcoin network can be more valuable on Ethereum or Cardano or Midnight than it can be on Bitcoin because it makes a yield while it's on Ethereum and Cardano and Midnight, these other systems, whereas it doesn't make a yield there. So if I'm a financial actor like BlackRock, I have no philosophy. I'm not here for Satoshi's vision. I have investors and I have returns. So if I can have an ETF that pays a 3% dividend, I'm going to get more investors than an ETF that pays no dividend at all. It's the same underlying asset. They just live on different networks. So you're going to see a wave of structured products that are going to come in and offer yield on Bitcoin at a higher risk category, tranche, and they're going to live on different things. Well, half or more of the Bitcoin is now on other networks. What is Bitcoin exactly doing? Because the Bitcoin's now living somewhere else. If the gold has left the mine.
I would love to see a debate between them so bad.
We got to facilitate it.
Yeah.
I think that this is the place to do it.
I agree. Yeah, we should reach out to them and try to see if they'd be interested. I don't know if they'll say yes, but I would definitely like to try.
I think Charles would. I think Charles would do it.
I think Charles would too.
I don't know what he would have to lose. You know what I mean? If he really believes what he's saying. And I think that they both have very strong points. And I think it'd be awesome, man.
It would be so good. That would break Twitter, man.
Twitter would collapse into one event. It would collapse into the quantum.
Yeah,
I'm done. Sorry.
You're good, man. I hope he'll come back on because He did post recently that like people post my clips and like out of context, which we didn't do, but a lot of people did with our stuff. Right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
So
I mean,
I'm assuming he knows the game well enough to know that that wasn't us, but like it was taken from our conversation. So I don't know. I'm definitely down to try.
oh, I mean, dude, if that's a problem, then dude, like that's how the internet works. That's gonna happen
totally.
no matter what. You know what I mean? So
No, I completely agree, 100%. But yeah, we should try to reach out to them. I think Jeff would probably do it too. I don't know.
I don't see why not. I think they both are pretty like confident in what they have to say. To where
Yeah,
it's like,
that'd be
do
so
it.
good, dude. I'd get my popcorn out. You know.
Yeah. So on my end, it's like I think they're both very fair ideas, and once again, I really do think it comes down to technology versus protocol, because Jeff really is not saying that you can't use Bitcoin somewhere else and it still be useful or whatever. Or rather, he's just saying from the perspective of like to be free from the fiat system. The only answer is Bitcoin, self-custody. So it's super interesting. It's super interesting, man. I think it's a fascinating conversation. And I was trying to there's some people that I heard some feedback from. They were saying it was kind of like hard to follow some of that conversation as well. And some people also said in the comments of the show, I guess I'll go ahead and pull it up real quick. They're saying, can we like react? Oof, not seeing it. Okay, so let me see. Yeah, so some people were saying something around like, can you guys react to the conversation and some of the things that he was saying?
And yeah, we're gonna make a markets channel where we would do more like specific stuff, kind of like this. So we'll create a place for where that could make sense.
Yeah, I think it was on one of the clips channels. Is why I'm not able to find it, but yeah. So, anyways, yeah, really cool episode. Awesome guest. Absolutely loved that conversation. But yeah, so thanks for sticking around for that one and for being around for this one as well. Yeah, tons of clap back for Jeff on how the stuff works. So I just think it's a fascinating perspective. I really do think that it levels up the way that you look at money in general.
Totally. And I've never understood why people get so mad. Like if you disagree with someone, why the emotion to like try to tear them down that much? Like I've never understood that. If you really hate someone, the opposite of love is indifference, not hate, in my opinion. And he definitely got a lot of hate. It's like, yo, you're a professional hater and you ain't getting paid.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's just fascinating. Like, I don't know why. Yeah, you have no reason to be upset if you're like the XRP person too, because it's just like okay, he just doesn't see it from your perspective. So,
If you're, yeah, totally. And if you're, let's say you guys are all right, the XRP guys, like you end up being totally right. Would you not rather be like, see, I was right and my life's amazing now, rather than like wasting the time on this negative shit? Like, I don't get it.
for sure, it's like, but I guess that's really where it all comes from, is this lack of faith in their narrative and their
It's
ideas.
totally fair. Yeah, like if you know you're gonna win the game, like do you really need to talk shit? You just go win the game.
Yeah, it's really simple. It's like, because I definitely still am very much so like, I'm looking at what is the system's response going to be to Bitcoin.
Totally.
And I do think that that's something that you have to at least be prepared for to some degree. I don't know how else to put it, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm not even saying I agree with Jeff. I just found his approach to it very interesting. And I also think that trickle down effect that he referred to is really why crypto is inevitable. He just thinks that Bitcoin is going to be the protocol as he refers to. But that's also kind of why I picked Cardano, because like I didn't think that what he's saying can be built with just Bitcoin was possible. And so I was like, okay, so Cardano is kind of the evolution of that, where this could potentially be that thing. That's why it was my highest conviction play like 6 years ago, whatever. So yeah, well, it would be super interesting to see who ends up winning. I I also don't think it'll be one. Like
Right.
I don't fully agree with Jeff that it becomes like winner take all and all of it goes to zero, unless he's referring to dollars, because then that would be true, right? If we repeg the entire system, it's no longer in dollars, then technically they did go to zero in dollars.
Well, he also says versus Bitcoin, these things go to zero.
He said versus Bitcoin as well?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's the quote is all these things go to zero.
You're probably right.
Bitcoin.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that.
I get it. I mean, I don't know that I at this point, the more that I've listened to Jeff Booth, I think that there could be a dichotomy. I do think so. I think it could be that either Bitcoin is the only thing, or it becomes a thing in the sea of things.
Yeah.
A less important thing, that is, to be fair, to be clear. Like, I don't think like either Bitcoin is the only thing or Bitcoin is inferior to some of these other technologies, if you may.
I would love to have on people that are actually building these things that they're saying are the layers of the protocol, right? That can allow this to function. Because he's saying they're good enough to where they could be mass adopted, but they've not really been stress tested, right? And if you're gonna jump to this system, like bugs are potentially catastrophic. Do you know what I'm saying?
For sure.
But yeah, we'll learn more, and I'll send an email today to both of them saying, hey, we have an idea. Would you guys be down?
That'd be awesome, dude.
To Jeff and Charles.
Crypto culture needs that right now.
For sure. They need the show, man. They need the show. Send email to Jeff and Charles for the 8th. Cool. Well, do y'all in the chat have anything else y'all want to chop it up on before we wrap it up?
What up, chat?
What up? The dollar is already a thing and still will be here. Yeah, I don't think the dollar will go away very quickly. Otherwise, why do they do all this stablecoin stuff? But who knows? That's also what I was thinking too. This is also very interesting, which why Jeff made say no, is that Jeff, Monkey saying Jeff will get crushed because Charles is a coder. So like, yeah, the technical background, major points for Charles.
I don't know Jeff's background.
He's very involved in tech, but he was more the business person in tech.
I wonder, because he kind of comes off though like a math guy, to be fair. Like he kind of comes off.
Yeah, he's definitely absurdly smart.
Yeah. Or like a science background kind of thing. I don't actually know, but yeah, I don't know if that really matters for what the conversation is, because like to the level at which Jeff has actually studied Bitcoin, from what I can tell, it doesn't seem like he's going to be stumped on like the nonces and like, hardcore cryptography. Like, I don't think that's really the question of what it is, at least.
Totally fair. Yeah. So unless the conversation was pulled there, it's not really relevant.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely things, man, when it comes to Charles's, like, basically it's going to come down to proof of stake versus proof of work. Like, that's what the conversation might come to. And that's a fascinating conversation.
Between those two?
Yeah. If they were intellectually talking about this, that would have to be kind of where it leads to. It's like, can proof of stake create a system that is real money? Which I think Jeff would say no.
And obviously Charles would say yes. Yeah, so no, that'd be a lot of fun. Hopefully that materializes. But that's it from me. Anything else from you, Keith?
Nah.
I don't really see anything in the chat. Any threads? What's the next episode topic? We've got some awesome investment content creators coming on that are pretty big channels. They also run a massive app. It's one of the most popular finance apps in Canada. So that'll be a really good one.
Super stoked. And we have an emergency episode on Friday, correct?
Yeah, I forgot about that. That's this week, right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, so more of an AI-focused episode on Friday, and it will be at 1 p.m. It was the only time that we could get his schedule. So Friday at 1 p.m. You are on there, right, Keith? Yeah, you are. Cool.
Yes, I am.
Cool. So we'll be running that live, and definitely set your calendars. I'm sure we'll be doing more like emergency episodes as they happen, right? Because obviously people have busy schedules, and so we'll start taking what we can get in terms of making that happen. So we'll maintain the Tuesday and Thursdays for that continuity, but whenever given the opportunity, we're going to jump at it to try to make it happen. So that's why you need notifications on, because you never know.
You gotta have on notifications. You don't want to miss out on some of these episodes.
And you also got to show them one other important thing, Keith, in terms of
no doubt,
the other podcast app.
Oh, no doubt. So, as you guys all know, there's an app out there called Spotify, and we're on it. You better believe you. We're at 96 reviews on Spotify, and when we hit 100, we are releasing our playlist. Okay, we're gonna release the Memes and Markets playlist, and you definitely want to know what we're listening to, what we're vibing out to. That's a huge part of this culture, a huge part of the vibes here is the music, guys.
Totally.
I know you guys don't hear it all the time, but we are jamming.
Yeah, and it's only 4. We're 4 away. We're so close. So we only need 4 ratings. Come on, there's still 110 people here live at the end of the stream. You like this stuff. Go over, help us get to that 100 number. It would mean a lot to us. And as soon as that gets released, we finalize the playlist, and that will be jamming all summer long for sure. We've got Keith Speets. You know Keith Speets. You know that he is a natural curator of great experiences from music, and I like stuff, and I'll put it in there. And then we also got some additions from Asipa as well.
Yes. I am a semi-amateur curator of music, y'all. This is not
you got paid for it. That's not amateur.
There's been times where I have been paid to curate music. In fact,
so you're a professional.
Multiple occasions where I was paid.
You're a professional, buddy.
In different cities, y'all.
Let's go. That's crazy. What a flex. So yeah, definitely go help us out. The link to it is in the description of every single episode, so it's very easy to find. You can just drag it apparently to the middle of it, and then you're good to leave a review. So we're literally talking about 60 seconds of effort, maybe, and it would mean the world to us. It really helps us get discovered over there. So thank you in advance for doing that. Like we said, we'll be back live Thursday at our normally scheduled time, and then the extra bonus episode for the week, which you definitely don't want to miss. We're bringing on one of the biggest names in all of AI. So definitely come tune in. That'll be Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern.
Think about this. Notification bell turned on is so important because these extra episodes are the ones with the craziest guests.
Totally. Yes. And that way you can come in and look, we asked some questions from the chat. Like, think about how hard it would be if you don't have a show like this to get in front of these people and ask them your specific question, right? We're asking some from the chat. If you've got a great question, we're going to throw it out to them. That's why we made this show live.
Hundo P.
Absolutely. But that's, so definitely notifications on. We've been very intentional with how we've distributed all the content here. And we're getting very close to that point where people are going to start saying yes all the time. And so we're very close to that. So we appreciate all of you. Definitely subscribe, turn on all notifications. Now you know why. Again,
let's get it.
Cool.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. Stay blessed. Make it the best day of your life.
Yeah, take it easy. I'm going to let it run for 20 seconds because otherwise it cuts us off.
Don't cut me off, Riverside.
5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, actually, I'll try to play the outro. Let's see if that works today.
Let's see if we're back in action. Oh,
no.
No,
come on.